Felt like I was standing on the shore and I had just packed up everything I owned, every dream I ever had, onto a ship, and I was watching it sail. And I was just standing there alone. I didn't know what I was going to do. Leaving was tough because I'm looking at my family going, how am I going to provide, and what are we doing with the dreams of our hearts? We didn't even have time and space to really process through a lot of that, nor did I even think we had words or language for it. No real understanding of what we were going to, but we knew we were to let go of everything that we had sowed into for the last 5.5 years. We thought we were laying all of those things on the altar and sacrificing it all and not knowing what's next, just knowing that we had a really long drive in front of us to get to Colorado. That may have been the toughest day I think I've experienced in my life. I remember at one point I was crying so terribly that I had to pull over and just sit there and process and to try and regain composure. Everything I had built up in my mind and in my heart of what life and success in ministry was going to look like was gone. Like, it's done. I literally burned it. And it's over. Like, there isn't any ash to pick up to put it back together. And so for me, I lived in this place of saying, I love Jesus, but I don't want anything to do with his bride. I want nothing to do with the church world. I want nothing to do with church. Every single time I would go to a church, I was faced with the wounds that had yet to heal in my own heart. And so for me, it was just this brutal experience. And I came to Colorado and tried to plug in where I knew that we had some friendships. I just couldn't. I couldn't engage. One of the greatest tools the enemy tries, one of his number one tools that he tries to do to mess with any of us is isolation. And it's amazing the beauty that can happen when you actually begin to live life with people and expose the very weaknesses of your own heart and the beautiful parts of your heart, and actually get to know someone. The definition of relationship is to know someone deeply and to be deeply known. And when you can find yourself in relationships like that, it's amazing what the Lord can do. I had one friend of mine, he goes, what about you in church, man? Like, why aren't you speaking? Why aren't you teaching? Why aren't you doing this? And I told him again, I said, bro, I love Jesus, man. I love Jesus. I love the power and the presence of God, but I can't stand his bride. I can't be a part of it. But he said to me, he goes, bro, he said, if we're good friends and I keep inviting you over to dinner and you would come over, but you would constantly tell me how much you hated my wife, he goes, that would be really awkward. And I was like, yes, so that's good. So I guess this whole thing kind of breaks down after a little bit, you know? And he started to kind of communicate to me some things in that moment that were really impactful and really helpful. I just felt the Holy Spirit just kind of drop this thought in my mind, which was, you realize that you're a part of the bride, but in all of your statements, you're excusing yourself from that. And how are you ever going to change and be the change that you want to be for the bride of Christ if you find yourself outside of it? And the doors started kind of opening in my own heart for me to start to realize my own dysfunction and my own ways in which I had contributed to all of the craziness that I'd been a part of. For so long, I had lived very well and comfortably in the victim mentality. All of this had happened to me. All of this had happened, around me. All of this, it was never my fault. That's a lie. I excused myself from those moments of ownership. I didn't take ownership for my actions. And the moment that I started to take ownership of those things was the moment that I started to find a path towards healing. It was definitely over the course of the next couple of years, the Lord started to kind of just soften and mold my heart and bring me closer and closer and closer back to him. For me, everything that I had built my life up to be was no more. And I couldn't see a path back to it. Even though I would get cool opportunities, even as I started getting some healing, I would do some ministry stuff. I never could actually celebrate it because I wasn't in full-time vocational ministry anymore. because I equated calling to full-time vocational ministry. I'm not standing on a stage, sitting behind a pulpit, and I'm not leading some congregation or community. How am I living up to what I was created to do? How am I? There was always this thing of like, I'm not quite there yet. What I've started to realize and what has brought a lot of health and joy to my heart is realizing that ministry, truthfully, is anything that you put your hands to with the idea and the heart and the intent to bring glory to the Lord. Answering the call of God on my life was an idol. That was more important to me than understanding the heart of the Father. I cared more about the title that I had, the position that I had, or the thing that I was getting to put my hands to that I could tell people about, than I cared about, well, what does God say about me? What's his heart for me? Because the more and more that I'm drawn into the heart of the Father, the more and more the insecurities of my own heart gets killed and crushed and spoken to. And there's wholeness and healing that happens in my own heart. Every time I pursue him, the arrogance and the pride and the ego, all of that stuff is just melted away because I understand the heart of the Father. Because every single day, he is molding and shaping and making me into his likeness. But if my eyes aren't fixed on him and I'm fixed on this other task, or I'm fixed on this other thing that I feel like I'm supposed to accomplish, I've missed it. Because that's now become the idol. And the only thing that I try and focus on is the power and the presence and the face of God. Because that's the only thing that will change my life. It's the only thing that will encourage my life. It's the only thing that will carry me through any season that he brings me to. It's the only thing that brings me joy in the midst of pain. It's the only thing that brings answers when I don't have them. He is everything. Everything else can just crumble, and I'm gonna be okay. So now I'm in this position of going, man, I get to work with the church. I get to celebrate it for all its beauty. I get to hold it loosely, and I get to play a large part in trying to help some of the most incredible communities tell the story of the gospel and to reach people for Jesus. For years, I pursued platform, and now through this organization, we have this crazy, crazy opportunity to bring influence to the largest platforms across the world. That to me is crazy to think about, because this is what matters, is creating space for people to come to know Jesus and to experience the power and the presence and the wonder and the mystery of who God is. And that to me is what gets me out of bed in the morning.